Hey, hello, and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review the Velvet Underground and Nico, the debut album for the band the Velvet Underground and the German singer Nico. It's a pretty great album, and it's aged surprisingly well. And yes, so this album is counted twice, kind of, as the debut for both of them. So they went their separate ways after working together here. This is the track listing, and these are the tracks added to my playlist, 8 out of 11, so most of them here. This album's really good. It's psychedelic, but not so much to be limiting, boring, or sort of obtrusive. There's a surprising amount of variety in sounds here, from stuff which would probably be considered sort of soft alternative pop to more hard rock, and really everything in between. The variety leads to the album flowing really well, as they're able to balance the quicker rock tracks with the slower psychedelic stuff. The first side is pretty slow. It manages to speed up a bit with I'm Waiting for the Man and Run, 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 but most of the tracks here are slower to mid-tempo. Side 2 is a bit of an inverse of this style. Most of the songs are fast-paced, with I'll Be Your Mirror and There She Goes Again being a little bit more mid-tempo, slowing it down. The second side is clearly the sort of less hits side, more experimental. Side 1's still pretty experimental. It just has a bit more production and polish, in my view, which side 2 just doesn't have. Particularly Black Angel's Death Song and European Sun are just they just go. They have long guitar solos, which side 1 kind of doesn't do as much. The genre overall is clearly psychedelic rock, although it tends to be very wide-ranging as a genre, and this album's no exception. The sounds here would kind of inform a bunch of the rock and pop going into the 1970s, so it ends up being kind of a primordial breeding pool for a bunch of the modern genres of music. The instrumentation and production definitely puts it in the rock category of music from this time period, not pop or country or more alternative stuff. Definitely rock here, but a lot of the sounds would carry on into other genres, into the 70s and 80s. There were 4 singles released before the album, so 2 singles really, 2 A-sides and 2 B-sides, starting with All Tomorrow's Parties, I'll Be Your Mirror, Sunday Morning, and Femme Fatale. None of the tracks here were particularly popular on the radio. This album was not viewed as particularly popular due to the lyrical content. It was banned at the time from a lot of record stores and on the radio, but going into the 70s and 80s, it is sort of garnered a fan base. My favorite track here probably gotta go with Heroin, despite the name. It's pretty good. I really like all the quicker tracks here and the well done guitar parts. Heroin just has the best implementation of those, in my opinion. This is the first album I've heard from both artists, so it gets the top spot for both the rankings of the Velvet Underground and Nico. In terms of the top spot from 1967, it doesn't take it since the Beatles were releasing stuff at this time, and they released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which blows all but the most perfect albums out of the water. The Velvet Underground and Nico is a great album, to be sure, but Sgt. Pepper's is definitely one of the greatest albums of all time, so it cleanly keeps its spot here. Next up is the Velvet Underground's second album, 1968's White Light/White Heat. As a super innovative, kind of on the forefront of sounds, I'm interested to see where they go and, hearing what bands they end up influencing into the future with this album and their later albums. So stay tuned for that. And as always, stay minty.